Chanley Painter live for us in New York. Chanley, thank you. Let's bring in California GOP Chairwoman Jessica Millan Patterson and Los Angeles County GOP Vice Chair Siaka Massaquoi. Thank you both for coming on here. FoxNews.com wrote the following headline here. It says the following: Biden hunkers down at Delaware Beach House after only public event of the week. You know, it's interesting because it almost feels sad, Jessica. You look at this and you're like, I don't know. It feels sad. It feels like he's become totally irrelevant.
He's given up on the narrative that he's up for the job.
Yeah.
He had a week where we had a tumultuous week on Wall Street. We had raising tensions in the Middle East. We have a border that's leaking like a sieve. And the only event he did was bringing in the World Series champs. He didn't do anything, any of these problems. There's one thing to give Kamala Harris the space to campaign. Right. There's another thing to be just phoning it in. It's very clear he's phoning it in.
Somebody still has to run the country. Meantime, Kamala Harris is out in battleground states and she is campaigning. But it's interesting, Siaka, because she's giving, and I mean she is giving the identical speech in each of these battleground states. We have a sample for you. It's 30 seconds, kind of long for our style here, but well worth it. Watch.
Listen, let me tell you, I am clear. The path to the White House runs right through this state. And listen, I am clear. The path to the White House runs right through this state. I took on perpetrators of all kinds. I took on perpetrators of all kinds. And are we ready to fight for it? And are we ready to fight for it? And when we fight, we win.
I mean, big applause for whoever put that together, but it's unbelievable. These are different rallies, yeah. And she doesn't think that television's not they're covering it.
Well, you know, what we're seeing is the great script of the Democratic Party. Like, they're not going to let her go off script. There's a reason why, because both her and Joe, I believe they're not the ones running the show. So that's why we're seeing it look like a puppet show, because the puppet master is behind the curtain pulling her aside, because if she ever came up and have to answer hard questions, like I said before, her record is Joe's record. And I think it's at a point now we should really worry about that nervous tick she has, that every time hard questions come, she starts to cackle. What, is she okay?
Yeah.
We need to start looking in the health of both of them now. It's really wild to me to see what's
I'm curious how she handled these debates. It's going to be fascinating here. Meantime, here's a campaign ad that Harris just dropped. Watch.
As vice president, she backed the toughest border control bill in decades. And as president, she will hire thousands more border agents and crack down on fentanyl and human trafficking. Fixing the border is tough. So is Kamala Harris.
Well, one, she's still the vice president. Just for the record, she's still the vice president, too. Are they kidding? They're running an ad on the border? You're raising this. It's like Joe Biden running an ad on Afghanistan. Let's take one more look at Afghanistan.
It's absolutely ludicrous. And we're not just talking about the last 3.5 years that she's been the vice president. Let's look at her 20-year record. When she was the the attorney general here in California and supported sanctuary state. When she was the DA in San Francisco and supported sanctuary cities. When she refused to prosecute illegal immigrants. We have seen an increase on illegal border crossings of 140% over the last 3.5 years.
Yeah.
She is part of the problem. And if she wanted to fix it, she could do it right now.
And speaking of fixing this, I think it's worth pointing out, this is the Harris letter from 2018 rejecting more funding for the border agents. Quoting here, we urge you to reduce funding for the administration's reckless immigration enforcement operations that are tearing families apart and harming our economy. That's the same one, by the way, a minute ago wants to secure the border.
It's all just a joke. At the end of the day, these are wild socialist policies that she wants to implement. She was locking up, to Jessica's point, as she was letting these illegals come in, she was locking up, again, people like me for minuscule misdemeanors and keeping us in there for a long period of time because she has her own agenda to play out there, right? So what she's doing and what everyone's doing, it's the American people truly against the mainstream media, because the media is what's been running a campaign for her right now by hiding her and making her look like she's the next best thing since sliced bread. Guess what? She isn't, and most people have some type of issue eating that.
We had a state senator on last night who changed parties from Democrat to Republican. And we know you wanted to talk, but I wanted to put these pictures up because this is Gavin Newsom today walking around, and he is picking up homeless encampments and so on and so forth. And I thought it was worth a look. I just want your thoughts on people kind of changing, pulling out of the Democratic Party. and then Gavin Newsom kind of going against some of his own people.
Well, I think it's pretty clear what he's doing. He's not that confident that Vice President Harris is going to win, and he's looking at 2028. He's got a finite amount of time to clean up his state so he can run for president. And here in California, this is an ongoing message.
Yeah.
We saw the senator who had switched parties yesterday. It was incredibly brave and courageous to move from the majority party to the minority party. But we're seeing it in registration since October of last year. Over 200,000 new Republicans we have. In that same time period, Democrats have lost 112,000, and no party preference or declining state have gone down about 60,000.
15 seconds.
Yes, and to add to that point, right here in Los Angeles, since 2023, we've gained about 66,000 new voters, while the Democrats themselves since 2023 have lost 46,000 voters. That's in L.A. So things are changing, guys.
Right.
Like, get out there.
Nobody's saying that that Trump's going to take California, but it is fascinating the shift that's going. The pendulum is starting to swing back.
There's a lot of smaller races here in like the city that we win 1, 2, or 3. That's rippling effect is going to go through California and through the rest of the country.
Siaka, Jessica, thank you. Coming up, what caused a passenger plane to suddenly fall 17,000 feet in 1 minute, then spiral to the ground without